Olivia Katz here, beaming in from the Northern Rivers in New South Wales, Australia. As some of you might already know, for the last year, I've been developing a documentary which emerged out of the recent flood crisis that pummeled the region. I want to tell you a little bit about this film and where we are with our production. In late February of 2022, the Northern Rivers experienced some of the worst flooding in modern Australian history. And the damage it inflicted not only on its communities, but also the landscape and wildlife was profound. At the time the floods hit, I was actually embarking on a master's degree at Southern Cross University in Lismore. But when the floods unfolded, I found myself struggling to return to any semblance of normality. It was painfully clear that the Northern Rivers was experiencing a humanitarian crisis. But I also had a gnawing sense that this catastrophe was a war cry from Mother Nature. I hit the streets as soon as I could to help support our flood affected, and while the community spirit was remarkable, the devastation was so wide and so deep that without adequate support from the government and emergency services, so many people were falling between the cracks. I was shocked by the scenes I witnessed and the stories I heard. So after a week of volunteering, I picked up my camera and began to document the crisis. And while each person had their own nuanced version of the flood, the tone and theme was so often the same. People felt unprepared and ultimately forgotten. As I dove deeper into the story and began to contemplate the larger context in which this crisis was unfolding, I was struck by both its poignance and larger significance. The last 3 years have shown us that we have officially entered a new age of intensified climate disasters, and Australia is categorically not ready. After a few very tumultuous months of trying to balance school with this documentary, I decided to quit my master's and fully devote myself to telling this story. About 6 months ago, with a small amount of funding that was generously donated through crowdfunding, we were able to pull together our first trailer. But since then, our story has really evolved and grown. At the heart of our narrative is a group of incredible locals, including a Bundjalung man with deep ties to the river. As our lead characters move through their recovery, a roadmap begins to materialize, with prescient wisdom for future disaster-affected communities. And as our personal narratives touch on these larger key themes, we'll be weaving in expert insight to place this particular crisis in the broader context of what Australia and Australians are currently facing. While Acts 1 and 2 of our film bring sharply into focus what it could look like if Australia walks blindly into the next decade of a warming climate, the tone and pacing of our film shifts dramatically as we move into Act 3. The final act of our film is going to take audiences on an inspired journey to discover and understand some of the most critical solutions emerging from the floodplain and from other disaster-affected communities globally. It is in Act 3 that we paint an achievable and tangible picture of possibility and regeneration post-disaster. For the last year, I've been working on this film pretty much full-time and primarily self-funded. And right now, I really need your help to keep moving forward. And a relatively small amount of development funding will mean that we can undertake some key steps in our production. So right now, our top priority is reshooting and recutting our trailer so that people watch it and they really understand the kind of story that we're trying to tell and the kind of impact that we're looking to have. We're looking to raise about $30,000 in development funding, which obviously isn't enough to make the entire film, but I feel really strongly that with this new asset, with our new trailer, the support that we need is going to come on board. Our intention and hope is that this film would become a keystone climate story for Australia and a tool for the array of organizations advocating for improved preparedness, climate action, and the regeneration of ecosystems across this continent. This is not just another disaster film. For me, Act 3 is like the light at the end of the tunnel. There are some amazing solutions being developed in the wake of this disaster, and there is so much gold to be alchemized from this crisis. Learnings and lessons that other communities desperately need access to. So, if you're in a position to help us get this film made, we would be so grateful for your support. As Margaret Mead once said, a small group of thoughtful people could change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Please like and share this campaign as much as you can and get in touch if you have any questions.